Welcome to Leadership Basics, the show where we take leadership out of the textbook and drop it right into real life. The messy meetings, the tough conversations, the pressure, the people, and the moments that actually test you as a leader. I'm Jon Doolen, and I built this show for leaders who are tired of fluff and ready for practical. Whether you're new to leadership, leading a team, a business, a household, or just trying to lead yourself a little better than you did yesterday, you're in the right place. Each episode, we're going to get honest about what works, what doesn't, and how to stay steady when people don't react the way you expected. Because the truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all leadership. There's just the next right decision and the courage to make it. Let's get into it. Pastor Amy Mayo-Moyle is the kind of leader who brings both backbone and heart to the room. The kind of pastor who can preach hope on Sunday and still roll up her sleeves on Monday when life hits hard. She's a senior pastor at Clarkston United Methodist Church, and her journey through ministry has taken her through the full reality of the United Methodist system. The call, the assignments, the hard seasons, the wins that were worth the fight, and the moments that shaped her into the leader that she is today. And here's something that says a lot about her leadership. Amy stepped into this role right in the middle of COVID as a newly appointed senior pastor. When everything got uncertain, when routines disappeared overnight, when people needed connection more than ever, she helped the church stay steady, stay creative, and stay focused on people, not just programs. What I respect the most is this. She doesn't just lead a church, she builds people. Amy develops teams, she mentors leaders, she helps a community move forward with clarity, compassion, and courage. Today, we're going to talk about her path into ministry, how she knew this was her calling, the doubts she had along the way, and how she pushed through them, the mentors who shaped her, the leadership accomplishments she's most proud of, and the impact she hopes to leave long after the last service and the last meeting. Welcome to the show, Pastor Amy.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and so one thing I in my notes I want to just clarify is COVID was kind of like bearing down on us. I think, in fact, I was the leadership chair that shut the church down while the former pastor was still there. Mm-hmm. And then you came in and cleaned up our mess.
I don't know about that, but okay.
Yeah. So I want to kind of dive into some of these questions. And the first one I want to start off with is, what's the one thing you'd love people to understand about your journey that they usually don't ask?
You know, my journey, it's just been lifelong. And so I think that people kind of, sometimes they expect in a pastor like that there was this moment, this big, God's voice came down and said, come and, mountaintop experience. And for me, it was going into ministry, becoming a pastor. It's been a lifelong journey, I think, and it's still a journey that I'm growing into and learning all the time. So I think that we read in the Bible about all these great moments where God spoke and called someone and there was great certainty, and it was a little more fluid than that for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to me because that's exactly how I envisioned it was, that you woke up one morning, your feet hit the carpet, a spark of energy, and you said, this is what I'm going to do. So to me, now I'm even more curious. So you come from a faith-based family. Your father was a minister? No.
My mom.
Your
My
mom
mother
was.
was.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so did her impact lead you in
Oh
that
yeah,
direction?
definitely. So my mom, she stayed home when my brother and I were young, and then at our church, the director of Christian education took another position, and she had been volunteering in the program for a long time, and so she stepped into that. And then while she went back to work, she was recognizing her own call, and she went to seminary and everything, and then was ordained in the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was there ever a moment that you were like, I think I want to be a bus driver, and then you came back and like, nope, I'm definitely going to clergy?
So I will say that while there's call, there's also my personality. And I am very much, once I felt like this is where I was going to go, it was there, that's where I went.
That is an intense blessing, because as a career coach, I work with people every day who have no idea. They can be 20, 30, 50, and they don't know what they want, where they want to be in 10 years. And so to know that and just say, this is where I'm going, I'm impressed by that. And I will tell you that when I was a kid, my dad was a truck driver, so of course I wanted to be a truck driver like my dad, until I discovered professional wrestling. And then I was like,
of course,
I want to be like Hulk Hogan. And that was a hard conversation with my dad to say, hey, I'm not going to follow in your footsteps. And of course, I wasn't built to be a professional wrestler, and drugs weren't something I was interested in. So I was in the Army instead. Yeah. But for me, it was, there's a meme of this where it shows one image of what we think our career is going to look like, and it's linear. And then there's the other image below that says what our career is actually like, and it's all these scribbles. So I think it's a true blessing to be able to say, I knew where I was going, and I got there. Now, the journey piece of it, I think that's powerful, because admitting that, yeah, I knew where I was going, but I'm still learning every day, and I don't know where this journey is going to take me.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that's part of what I appreciate about ministry too, is that it's not ever the same. Sometimes I don't appreciate that, but it's, there's always different things that come up. We're always saying, gosh, they never taught us that in seminary, things like that. COVID's a perfect example of having to shift the way that you do everything. And so it's constantly learning, and that's, I think, part of, for me, what keeps me excited too.
Yeah.
So,
talking about the COVID thing, so when you came back to Clarkston, you had been here before. How many years were you at Orchard?
So I was at Orchard for 6 years. So
Okay.
I was the associate at Clarkston United Methodist Church from 2010 to 15.
Okay.
And then from 15 to 21, I was the senior pastor at Orchard in Farmington Hills. And so came back starting July 1st of 2021, just when we were starting to not have as much, masks were kind of lifting and things like that, but still also encouraged, and trying to figure out how to come back from everything when so much, had to move to online and everything like that.
So from a leadership perspective, obviously that's a lot of years to be gone, and the church has grown significantly. If you were to assign a percentage, I'm not saying it has to be accurate either, but how many familiar faces were there when you came back to the church?
I would say probably about 75-80%.
That is outstanding.
My first Sunday back, I remember looking out and saying, wow, I want to thank you all for still being in the same places that you were when I left here 6 years ago, because church people tend to have their seats, and recognizing so many. But also then, of course, getting to know the new people who came in along the way over those 6 years, like, you and your family and others. And so there was both the familiarity and comfort, especially during COVID, to come back and already have established relationships, but also the excitement of meeting the new people who came to the church, since they built, and since just really it clarified their identity in the community more even, I think.
Yeah. So had you been back to the church since the expansion?
I had. The previous senior pastor, and I remained close and connected, and we actually wrote a Lenten study together, and so we worked. I came one day and we were working on it in the middle of construction, and so I'd been there a couple times, but I mean, I was pretty lost when I first came back, and I was like, now how do I get there? You know, because it's so different. It's still, and now I'm so used to it, it's hard to imagine how things had been before, but yeah.
Well, we joined during construction, and I remember we were walking on pieces of wood to go from the sanctuary to the Sunday school.
Okay.
So that's why I was curious, because so much about the building has changed, but you're right, the people. And to me, that's what's really neat about our church, is that there's so many people that have been there generationally, and which it leads me down a path. So we, for a while, were able to boast that we had an all-female clergy up until very recently, which is still a success story, and we'll get into Jeremy in a minute. But as a girl dad, that was kind of cool. And it was always fun to share that on social media, that look how progressive our church is. All of our clergy are female. But being the person that got to lead that, talk me through that pride there.
Well, I mean, it was amazing when I realized, it didn't hit me right away at first. But when I realized that we had 4 clergy appointed to the church who were all women, and what that then meant, that was exciting. And I kind of, Reverend Christy and I would talk about how do we tell the world this? Because I don't know that there's another United Methodist Church that's being led by 4 clergy women only. And so that was kind of exciting, but also we were missing a male voice too, and I think that that's important. For me, I kept saying to myself, if I was going to a church and it was all men and there wasn't a female voice, I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with that. So I was always kind of mindful of that as well, and tried to be. And when Pastor Rick and I were on staff together here, we just recognized there were people who came to me for things and people who went to him for things, and they were indifferent, and having that diversity, so to speak, was helpful.
You mentioned the lack of a male voice, and I know that it can seem like that from the outside, but there's plenty of male staff.
Sure.
And I want to talk about Jeremy just for a minute, because as I've re-immersed myself back into the Clarkston community after traveling and being gone for so long, one of the things I've become very proud of is, as I talk to people at different events, I say, and I don't think this is normal, but one of the first questions I ask them is, what church do you go to? And only because of the look on their face, I'm like, I don't think that's a normal question people ask. But when I tell them where I go, one of the first things they ask me is Jeremy still there? And obviously, you're aware Jeremy started off with us as a janitor.
Right.
He an entry-level job just to get by, and has now grown into be the assistant pastor or associate pastor. And he has, in his wake, he has left a legacy of leadership and people who grew up around him as a part of the different programs that he led. And so I respect your perspective to say, we need a male voice. But at the same time, I would say, I think you've done a really good job of developing all of the people around you, because sometimes people don't know that Colin is not clergy.
True.
And so,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So as we dive back into your journey, one of the questions I'm curious about is, you've held different positions within the United Methodist Church, and currently, what a lot of people probably don't know is that the Clarkston United Methodist Church is the largest church in the conference.
It's one of the largest. It's in the top 5, the 3rd largest.
Okay, well, you've just broken my heart.
I'm so sorry.
That's another thing I brag about. I tell everybody how great our church is.
It is unique that we are growing right now.
Okay.
And that we have as much as we have going on.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting, and I think we're unique in the United Methodist Church in that way right now.
So how has your leadership style changed over your journey from the first position you had after school to now? Well, I think confidence certainly has grown.
my very first appointment, I was serving in inner city Detroit as an associate pastor at a large church on Woodward Avenue. And I was thrown into a whole lot of different things and kind of making it up as I went along, and learned a lot about what to do and not to do. And I think that is sort of how I've, just tried to always look at it as a learning experience. But I think that in general, what I recognize is how, and I think I've always felt this way, but I all the more so, how important the relationships are in ministry, and that really, I could be the best preacher in the world, but if I'm not connecting with the people, and if I'm not there for them and representing God in the highs and lows of their lives, then what I say from the pulpit isn't going to hit as hard, or doesn't really matter. And so it's more, for me, relationships is the most important thing. And I'm not sure I would have recognized that in the beginning when I'm trying to get it all done. And that sometimes you have to slow things down and make sure you're bringing people along. And sometimes it's just doing the work of relationship, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned confidence, which is something I would like to talk about. As a girl dad, I'm constantly looking for ways that I can expose my daughters to life events that will help them build their confidence. You've had to navigate the church system, which hasn't always been friendly to, quite honestly, anyone other than white men. And so I'm curious how you went about building that confidence as you navigated through that system. And from the perspective of, if there's a little girl out there listening who someday wants to be the lead pastor at Clarkston United Methodist Church, what advice would you give them to navigate?
That's a good question.
And I will say, for the record, it's one I didn't give her access to ahead of time.
I think that expose yourself to as much as you can. I think the more that our eyes are open, the more we understand ourselves. And so for me along the way, and I think things that led me into ministry was opportunities to be with people in different cultures and different communities, being exposed to people who had different faith experiences than I did, both within the world of Christianity and without. I think that's part of it, is knowing yourself and figuring yourself out in the midst of all of that. And I think that my best advice would be to stay true to who you are and who you are called to be and what God has gifted you to be. And that it's, again, the relationships, and you get to know people and build that. The United Methodist Church is unique in that our churches, the pastors are assigned versus called. We don't have like a selection committee and an interview. We're just appointed. And so, part of that is also being involved in the conference and having people know you and things like that. And so, I know that some of the experiences that I have are what had within the conference are what led me to be leading one of the largest churches in Michigan.
Okay. So when you use the word conference, to those who don't know what that means.
Yes, insider language. So Michigan, the state of Michigan, all the United Methodist churches in Michigan are part of the Michigan Conference.
Okay.
And so for me, as an ordained elder in the Michigan Conference, I will be moved around, but only within Michigan, because that's my membership isn't to a local church, but to the conference.
Okay.
And so the conference, we make decisions for United Methodists in Michigan and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So just because you mentioned it, I'll ask, what are the chances, like when I served in the military, it was the same way. It was, you were told where to go and when to go, and you were never guaranteed how long you got to stay. What does that look like for you?
That's a good question. At this point, my prayer is that I could retire from Clarkston, and assuming they continue to like me and we continue to do good ministry together, I think that's a strong possibility. And this is the first point in my life I've been able to really feel that way. I've always tried to be open because I've made a vow to itinerate. When I was ordained, I made that vow. And so in that vein, I've always tried to be open when I've received a call. There's only one time when I asked for reconsideration, and that was because it was a position outside of the local church, and I am largely administrative, and while it was an affirmation to be asked to do that, it's not what I felt called to do. I feel called to be a local pastor, and that was helpful to recognize that that was one of those kind of moments in there that reinforced my calling is to be a pastor of a local church, and it wasn't going to be the best fit for my family either.
Yeah. So speaking of your family, being second generation, do you think there's a chance that there'd be a third generation?
I don't think so.
So, because I think what some people who don't know you may not know that your husband is also an ordained pastor.
Yeah. He works for the conference, and everything. And so that's a whole different thing. He did feel like felt called to do that, whereas not so much for me. So.
Yeah.
But I still serve the conference in different ways and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you're saying there's no chance that it would be third
Who
generation?
knows what God will do?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't think so. Although I will say, my son called me yesterday. He's like, "I have a theological question for you," and that just always blows my mind when he does that. But I think they'll. My hope is they'll be involved in churches, and I think that will be the case. But I don't necessarily see them as a pastor as a career path. But who knows?
Yeah. Well, I've heard that it's tough being a pastor's kid, and.
Yeah, the moving part is really, really hard, and having to start over. And I think that if there's anything that would have had they felt felt called, that would have dissuaded them, it would have been that aspect. So
you're faced with tremendous challenges throughout the course of the day, and I'm curious, how do you stay grounded?
Well, one of the things I really try to do is to protect my day off, which is Friday, and it's the day that I have to, do the home things that I need to do, but also to do the things that take care of myself and my spirit. I journal, I, read scripture, read devotions, things like that, of course, but I recognize that if I go without taking some time, I'm not as good at my job. And so to find a balance so that I do really try to take my days off if I can.
Yeah.
And just be a normal person on that day, and go grocery shopping and change the beds and do those kinds of things, but also go out to lunch with my dad, or meet up with another colleague who's their day off too, and we can go have coffee or whatever the case may be, but to just have that day. And I like to have it start kind of in the Jewish tradition of starting the night before, so that Thursday night is kind of like my Friday night for most people, you know, and to just save that to have dinner with my family, and be able to go into the day and just focus on that kind of stuff too, have some balance.
That's interesting. As you were talking about that, what do you think the most common misconception is between, because and I want to tell you where my mind went as you started talking about, like, I was thinking, like, how do you stay grounded just at work, and like balancing everything that comes at you with a lot of, you help a lot of people solve their problems, and then your answer was unique. It wasn't what I was expecting. And then I thought to myself, like, there are probably a lot of people who don't see you as mom Amy, or wife Amy, or daughter Amy. They just see you as Pastor Amy. And so if you were to speculate, what do you think the biggest misconception is about Pastor Amy versus not Pastor Amy?
Other than, I think people think I don't swear. I don't know if we should probably cut that out. I'm always surprised though when people like are talking to me and they apologize for their behavior or something that they've said or something like that. I think, I'm still a normal person and that doesn't bother me, and I still say crap or whatever, but I think that's one of the things. I think earlier in my ministry, people were, like for me to say that my day off was Friday, people thought I just worked on Sunday and didn't realize that there was, what all I was doing during the week and everything that, Sunday is the big day, but I'm working all week long too, and sometimes not taking my day off, but yeah.
So, which I do think that is absolutely something people don't understand, is that you, and specifically in your case, like you literally live on the property. And so it's really hard to really detach sometimes. I don't know how you do it, because like I live a mile away and sometimes I can't detach. But as you talk about that, so I've been in the church almost every day of the week throughout the last couple years, and you're always there. I did not know you took Fridays off, because I'm pretty sure I've seen you in the church on Fridays. I would have guessed maybe Monday, but so as we talk about that, we talk about how just active the church is, and I mentioned this before we started recording, but to me it seems like the church has more going on today than it ever has. You probably have actual data to tell you whether it does or doesn't.
I'm not so, I think that COVID kind of clouds our vision of that to some extent, because while we had COVID itself and then we had to kind of come out of COVID, I think so. I think when I was here before, we probably had as much going on then. But one of the things that I said, and I think the staff was a little bit like, oh, okay, when I first came back, and actually it was before I started, and we did a planning day and a calendaring day, and I said, we're going to plan like there is no COVID and then adjust, instead of adjusting and then planning. And so so we just kind of tried to do as much as we could of normal programming, getting us back into that kind of thing. And so I think that I think we're at a very strong point, and I think we're growing, and that's exciting. But I don't want to discount the work of that happened before too, because one thing I can say for sure about the church is it's always had a very strong staff who has put so much into what they do.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing to me to work with such a creative and talented staff.
So as you talk about the staff and all the programming you have going on, what tools do you use to help them move along, and so that you're not the one that has to do all the programming? And
yeah, I mean, a part of it is regularly meeting with staff one-on-one, and goal setting and things like that. Definitely would be that. Also, we do a weekly staff meeting, and I'm pretty I expect everyone to be there. That's important. Because not only is it important for us to get work done, but there's a staff building component to that, so that we really do function as a team, and so that there's an opportunity then for someone who can say, hey, I need help with this, and someone else can say, let me take care of that for you, or, and so that we work together as a team to deal with this, that, and the other thing that kind of can come up. I recently, my mom passed away recently, and the staff, I don't know that people knew how long, how I was out of the office or anything, because the staff just filled in the gaps without, I hardly had to ask for anything. They just went into motion and knew what to do. And I think a lot of that has to do with us sharing our regular, this is what I'm doing this week. This, partly we do that so that when people ask us questions about things we might not necessarily be in charge of, we still have answers and that kind of stuff, but also because then we work better as a team together and can help fill in the gaps and stuff. And so by just spreading it out and saying, here's something that needs to be done, who has the time and the energy and the gifts for this ministry, the heart for this ministry.
Okay.
And so
you talked about calling earlier, and this year we've seen a lot of the members of the church step up to offer their gifts of teaching different things. So the question I would have on that is, how do you navigate that when the gift that they want to offer may not necessarily be perfect for the church at that time?
I think that I try to be, this is another thing that I think age and experience has helped with, because I think earlier in my ministry I would have been like, oh yeah, let's, whatever, sure. And now what I would probably try to refocus that energy into something else. And, this is really great. I'm not sure that we're here right now, but I do have this need that I think that you would be.
So redirect.
Redirect, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so, of course, obviously, I had come to you and said, hey, I think we should do this thing. And I was later told that some other members who attended the class that I taught had said, like, we have been wanting this for so long. So how do you go about, like, if like, we need something here and I'm not the person to do it, how do you go about finding and harvesting the right people to do it?
Well, I think this kind of comes back to the relationship piece. And I try hard to know people and know what their gifts are and know what their passions are. For me, that's actually the thing that I think I'm good at and I feel passionate most about, is helping people to use their gifts to serve God, to serve the church. I think that it's one of the things that I'm really called to do. And so I have no problem saying I'm not good at that, or this is not my area, or while you might, this is a need, I need to go and see. And so by knowing people, I usually can say, hey, I know who that should be. And I pray about it too. And once I kind of sit with something, I usually get an idea and am able to then go from that. But also, sometimes people don't tell you that they've been waiting for a class like this forever, and then you get really blessed in that God just sends you someone that says, hey, I'd like to do this, and it all kind of works out. So.
Yeah. So what does courage look like in ministry leadership?
I think that this is a really heavy one right now, especially with the world and everything. I think that courage is fulfilling your call and following where God leads you, and recognizing that not everyone is always going to be on board with that, but God is calling you to do something.
Yeah.
And so I think courage is being able to be non-anxious and nonplussed when things aren't going the way that you want them to go, but staying the course, and trying to bring the people on board with you. I think that whenever I've experienced conflict in church or anything like that, the best thing in the world is to just have the conversations and to talk to people. If I know, in the past, if someone had been upset with me or something like that, and I know about it, I'll just call them and say, hey, can we talk? And I think that, because again, above everything else, my first job is to be their pastor. And if I'm doing something that's getting in the way of me being their pastor, then I need to figure out what that is and have the courage to just mend the relationship, or try to at least hear people out, or things like that. And I'm blessed in that, knock on wood, that's not really an issue here in this setting, but but it is something that you as you're building relationships, you don't want things to get in the way of being the pastor.
Yeah, it's another bias, in my opinion, is that, like, pastors should always be nice, but sometimes you got to have those tough conversations. Sometimes you got to get in and get dirty, because at the end of the day, you're still the leader, even though you're a pastor who's supposed to be warm and welcoming. And I remembered.
Okay.
From a mentor perspective, name drop if you want to, but you don't have to.
Okay.
Some of the mentors or coaches that really significantly played a role in who is Amy today. And potentially, if depending on how open you are to share it, because sometimes it can get
No, yeah.
heavy, but the why behind it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my first mentor was my mom. And the way that she saw in me my gifts, she would always say, I didn't know then why you needed to do the things that you did. Like, I went to France and I went to the Soviet Union and I did all these things when I was a kid, and things that she and my dad, made sure that I do. And she said, I didn't always know it, but I knew that you needed to do it. And so in a lot of ways, she helped me to live into what would become my call. And then also seeing her in ministry and the model. And, the confidence that she had in ministry, I think that made a positive just effect in general for me. So certainly, like, I would say have been my first mentor. And I've already, it's only been a month since she's passed, and I'm like, there's things I'm like, I want to just talk to her about this and process this, and she'd have some good ideas, that kind of thing. But I've had other pastors along the way. Melanie Carey, who is the pastor at University United Methodist Church, was my pastor. She came to my home church when I was in college, and she just did things. She knew I was going to go to seminary, and so she did things like, hey, come and ride with me to this graveside service, or help me with this wedding, or things like that, so that I could get these experiences that you don't necessarily get until you're in there.
Yeah.
And so she was really good at stuff like that. And Rick Dake, who I followed, was a mentor, and there are a lot of things that I learned from him and his style and everything, but just working with him that I learned, and the importance of setting a vision and living it out, and that kind of thing. So I think those are some of my mentors, and there are certainly more that I'm probably blanking on. But
yeah.
But I do have a coach that I meet with once a month. And when I was called about this appointment, because I'm one of the very few women serving in a church the size of ours in the context that we're in, I wanted to work with a coach, and I said, okay, but when I got the call, I was like, yes, I will do this, but I need a coach.
Yeah.
And, I needed a coach who could specifically understand those kinds of dynamics. And unfortunately, because we're one of few, there's not as many churches this size, there's not as much experience with that kind of stuff within, the natural coaches I might have gone to, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I think that's a strong leadership quality, is the fact that you had the courage to say, I want to coach. I cannot tell you how many times I hear people say, I don't need a coach, I've got this. And then they ask me, well, how many coaches do you have? And professionally, I have 5 coaches for different aspects of what I'm doing. And so to twist that up a little bit, and if I force you to exclude the current staff at your church, who have you come in contact with professionally that you've just been really proud of? And so flipping the mentorship around to the other way now.
Well, when I was at Orchard, I served alongside Nick Bonsky, who is pastor now at St. Matthew's United Methodist Church in Livonia, and moving to the South Lyon United Methodist Church. And I came at a time when he was just about to go to seminary, and he ended up, because he had a family and everything, he was going back and forth, and so we brought him in on staff and worked with him, and then he was appointed as an associate pastor the year before I came back. And just seeing what he is doing and the leader that he is, I can't take all the credit or anything like that, but I'm really proud of the pastor that he is, and the relational style of ministry that he has, and his ability to see the large picture and then hone in on what needs to be done next. And he's just it's really exciting to see that. So he would be definitely someone that I take some great pride in And there have been a few other pastors like that I've gotten to mentor, either in a assigned kind of position or otherwise. But years ago, earlier in my ministry, I was a dean of a camp 1 week every summer, the middle school camp, and I had all these college students who were part of that staff. And so many of them are now in professional ministry, and that's just, it makes me proud. I can't take credit, but it makes me proud because to see their journey and to see what they're doing, the good things they're doing.
Yeah, well, to me, it's the ripple effect. And this is, I tell people almost daily, if you see something and it inspires you, do something about it, because you don't know who's watching your ripple, and you have a chance to potentially expose them to something that could teach them, that could inspire them even more. So I think that, whether you take credit for it or not, the taking pride in it and saying, I'm proud of you, I think that matters, because we don't know who they're watching. We don't, and it's there's a meme about this where it's a grown-up lion and a baby lion, and it says, I thought about quitting, and then I realized who was watching. And what I think is great about what you do is there are a lot of eyes on you, watching every step that you make, every decision that you make. And so I think that you are fully justified in taking as much pride as you want in watching these careers grow, because in the last episode we talked about good and bad bosses and how you can learn from both. And so I think that even if you weren't responsible for the positive side of their growth, maybe there was something you did that they're like, I'm never doing that.
True.
So just out of curiosity, 5-year vision, where do you see your current congregation in 5 years?
Ooh, well, I think that we are continuing to grow, offering more opportunities for, I think, especially mission engagement. We're excited to be offering a mission trip, an additional mission trip to outside of the country this year, and to continue to do those kinds of things, and to just continue to really live into being the most generous congregation that we can be, so that we're doing as much as we can for the community. I'm not sure how that could impact, we do the half-day happenings program when there's a half-day in Clarkston schools. We have programming for kids, and how we might even be able to expand that to when there's not school at all, or additional summer programming, things like that. And ultimately, I am hoping that we'll have more and more congregation members who are serving in lay things, that they, that they're responding to the passions that they have, and working with the church to make the world better, or to just spread the good news, or whatever they might be feeling called to do. But to see more and more people put into that, those leadership spots.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
That's cool. So I've noticed a change recently, and maybe it's just because I'm paying attention, and as a pastor, you just tell me if this has always existed. Okay. I've just never noticed. But we have a lot of people, and by a lot, I'll say a handful, maybe 5 people I've met in the last 6 months who have said they have they don't have any tie to a faith journey at all, but they show up because they believe, but they couldn't quote scripture. They've never declared loyalty to a church, but they're starting to show up because of the work that the church is doing in the community, and they're learning about the church and the fact that everybody's welcome. And so I've been inspired to see that, because several of them at point blank said, I believe in God, I've always believed, I've never had a church I can call home, but I'm hanging out here. This is, and they show up. And it's, to me, it's been like, I'm not that guy. Like, and I've told my wife this, if she didn't sing in the choir, I would have probably never stepped foot in the church. But because I have, and I've gotten to know the people, and it's pulled me in. But I don't think I ever would have been that person to just say, well, I'm just here because I heard about you guys. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if there's a question there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think that is it. I do think that's a unique thing that we're experiencing. I think it's to some extent been the way this church kind of is, because we try very hard to be active in the community, to open our doors to the community, to be part of, supporting the schools however we can, and because we say everyone is welcome and we mean it.
Yeah.
And I think that in a world where we are increasingly more just trying to exclude people, trying to, be divisive, that we're just more and more divisive to say that everyone is welcome and really mean it. And you can have very different political feelings than I do. That's okay. And a different lifestyle, whatever, that we value you and look for God in each person.
Yeah, that's so true. 2 weeks ago, I was standing in the gathering area, and I'm having a conversation with somebody who and I tried to not be political at all, but something about me must have said that I had an opinion. And he starts talking about his opinion, and someone else heard the conversation and was from the absolute opposite side. And what was cool, though, was they challenged each other respectfully. They both stated their stance, and then they hugged and went on. Like literally, they hugged each other.
Yeah.
And for me, I have no idea where this conversation came from. I have no idea what I did or said to make this person think I believed what he said. And to me, but it was a moment for me where I thought, where does that happen today? Where two people who completely disagree about a social issue can have a very friendly exchange, give each other a hug, and then just go about their day. And they're not upset, they're not throwing a temper tantrum, they're not telling the other one they have to leave. And it was a moment for me where I thought, that's like, it's just so, it's our boom, right there, our values in living color right there.
Yeah.
So
That's, for me, one of the things that I love about the creation story is how God created order out of chaos. And I feel like, it can all be so chaotic right now, and we have everything's so divided. But we can come together, and because of our faith in Christ, and because we've said we want to be here and about something that's bigger than ourselves, we can trust that God will create order. And that the other piece of the creation story is that we're created in the image of God. And so while we might vehemently even dislike each other, there's God in you and there's God in me, and how can we see that and live into that together?
Yeah. So a little bit of a fun question for you, and cussing is not the answer to this question.
Okay.
But if we asked your staff, which I didn't, what is Pastor Amy secretly great at?
Secretly great at?
Yeah. I know it's a hard question because it's like honk honk, toot my horn, but we all have superpowers. We all have that one thing that is just ours. Like we're like, boom, I got that. For me, it's opening jars at home.
I'm really good at getting rid of bugs and killing bugs.
Okay.
I think I'm
All
not
right.
afraid of getting stung or something like that. I don't know. I don't know that my staff knows that, though.
I should have asked them.
I don't know what they would say.
So
I'm kind of an open book.
from a legacy and impact perspective, when you finally decide to retire, what is one thing that you hope remains from your legacy?
Well, I think that they are loved by God, that they are beloved, and that I love them too.
Okay. And along the same lines, from a leadership perspective, what do you hope people say about your leadership?
That I was creative and relational, and that I was able to bring people along and help them to share a vision and feel like they were part of it. And
Okay.
that was collaborative.
So this is one I did actually ask some of your people, and across the board, a lot of answers, but the one that was very consistent was your one-on-ones with them are powerful, and they really feel like you're there for them. And so I will say, from a leader's perspective, one-on-ones are very rare. So many people don't do them, don't believe in them. They think, oh, we can just have a team meeting. And I will say one-on-ones are one of the most powerful things a leader can do for their people, specifically if you can create it in a safe space. And what I have found is, and this doesn't happen as much in the church, I don't think, but in corporate America, you get called to the boss's office, and it's usually because something's wrong. And what I've tried to encourage leaders to do is call your people to your office to tell them they did a great job, and then take them out and tell everyone what a great job that they did. And it just doesn't happen. So many, and I don't know why. And mainly because I don't think there's any one reason why they don't. I think some people are afraid to do it. I've met some people who just say, well, if I tell them that they did a great job, they're going to expect it again, which is completely silly to me, but people have actually said that to me. Yes. So we've kind of talked about this already, but if you could summarize it into just a couple words, maybe one or two words, what do you hope the church is known for in the community?
I hope that the church is known for putting love into action, for walking in the footsteps of Christ and caring about everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Personal development stuff. I know that you're constantly sharpening your blade to be the best that you can be, but what's the one thing you're still working on? And it doesn't have to be actively working. It could still just be a dream. But is there any skill set that you're looking to sharpen?
I wish I didn't have to use notes when I preach.
Me too.
I admire people who don't. I think I'm too much of a perfectionist, but in that way. I'm not a perfectionist in a lot of ways, but in that way, I want to get it right, I guess. So I wish, I think that would be one of those things. As well as I think always the working on being a non-anxious presence and, the best ways to help people use their gifts to be able to figure those things out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you talked about the divisiveness that exists today. What is the one thing that gives you hope?
I think the youth.
Yes.
I think seeing what the youth care about, seeing the youth who show up on Sunday mornings, on Sunday evenings, the youth in our church, but in our community as well, and just they're way ahead of us in so many ways, and
Yes.
To see, the kind of acceptance that I see in youth today, and excitement and commitment to making a difference. I think that's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And one of the things that getting the youth back involved, to me, I would constantly go to Colin and I would ask him for attendance updates and how many people are doing this and how many kids are coming to Sunday school. And my reason for this is I think that it's not just about the church, but it's about our community. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, is that I think that if you don't have youth involved in any aspect of your organization, it's a dying organization. Because I hate to be cliche about it, but the song they wrote in the 80s, "The Children of the Future," is legitimately true. And so I have been really, really impressed with, as with the kids that we have in our community, not just in our church, but when I come to the high school for the Joy Club for the Optimists, just seeing how engaged these kids are. And I don't think people do this, but I watch all the meetings. And so, like, I watch the school board meetings, and I go to as many township meetings as I can. But I recently had the opportunity to meet this kid named Boone, who is a student representative for the Board of Education. And he's also a member of the Optimist Joy Club. And this kid is just so sharp. And he knows who he is. He knows how to communicate. And I told him that. I actually tracked him down to tell him that here's what I've observed, and I think this is great. But I agree with you. I think that we as adults need to do more to make sure that the youth can know that their voice is heard.
Yeah.
Not just that their voice is heard, but we want to hear their voice.
Right. Well, and I think along those lines, yes, the children are our future, but they're our present too.
Yes.
And so to be able to, encourage them and listen to them and learn from them.
Yes.
I mean, gosh, as a mom, I have learned so much from my kids, and the kids in our church too. They're just as much created in the image of God as we are. They have just as much to share.
Yeah, that's great. So a couple of quick questions for you here. What book shaped you as a leader?
Ooh, probably Good to Great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A practice that you refuse to skip?
I kind of want to say like my morning routine with I like to sit down, have my coffee, play my New York Times games, and write in my journal or read something, and just have that kind of time by myself. I would not have said that 10 years ago. But even if it means I wake up early in order to have it, I think that time of just kind of being by myself, but then also some centering time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fair. What's the most challenging part of pastoral leadership?
I think ensuring that it's the congregation's church and not your own.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective, and I don't know that the average congregant realizes that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the most underrated part?
Underrated?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
not sure what I would say. I'm sorry. I don't have
No.
an answer.
Nope. You don't have to be sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm
yeah.
just like, I'm not thinking, I don't know. I should have thought about that beforehand.
No, that's okay. And then if you could pick one word to describe your current ministry, what would that one word be?
Relational.
Relational?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap it up?
No, this was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a good time as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And you're always welcome to Clarkston United Methodist Church.
Yes, and we have a lot of awesome stuff coming
Yeah.
up. And the neat part, I don't think people realize this, that you don't have to be a member of the church to just show up.
Oh, right, absolutely.
You
Or to
know.
participate in anything. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that happen at the church that have nothing to do with the church. You mentioned the half-day happenings thing.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to point out is I know people who use the church because they don't want to go to the library, they don't want to sit at home, and so they'll show up. And I've actually said, I'm like, Jack, I don't know who that person is. And he's like, they're here. Yeah, and he knows who they are, and they're there regularly. And he said they come here and they use the Wi-Fi and they do their homework, and I think it's really cool to be that safe place for people.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. And I mean, and that's part of what we're all about. It's just to be a resource to the community, and a place to come and know that you are cared for, and that hopefully we can show you the love of God without maybe necessarily having to say it, but to show it. You know, the best sermons are without words.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a wrap on this episode of Leadership Basics. If something you heard today hit home, don't just nod along and move on. Pick one thing and put it into action in the next 24 hours. Leadership isn't what you know, it's what you repeat. Thanks for spending time with me and Pastor Amy today. I'm Jon Doolen, and I appreciate you being here. If you want more tools, more real talk, and more ways to grow, stay connected and share the show with someone who's trying to get better too. I'm not hard to find. GetDoolen.com. Until next time, lead with clarity, lead with consistency, and remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be improving. See you in the next episode.